As a first-generation college graduate and a son of refugees, Mama had high hopes for her boy in the land of opportunity. She wanted him to pursue a decent career, to have to wear a suit to work, to drive a respectable vehicle. Mama, however, neglected to specify the material and the color that suit ought to be. I took the liberty to interpret that in my own way. This is my work suit and this is my work vehicle, the BMW K1200S. So, what does 170 plus horsepower feel hitting you in the groin? Stay tuned to find out. Zdravo I dobrodošli, bom dia, bem-vindos, servus und willkommen, buenos dias, bienvenidos, greetings riders, and welcome to Pegasus Motorcycle Tours and Consulting. What I have for you today is another review of one of my favorite motorcycles. I say that all the time, but this bike I've been looking for 5 years plus. Finally, in Southern California, this mecca of motorcycling, I find it, original owner, all the paperwork, all the maintenance, in pristine mint condition. I pulled the trigger and I could not be happier. So, what is this monster of a motorcycle all about? Stay tuned and let's go through the details. This is a 2006 BMW K1200S. It was one of their first experiments with sport touring machines. This is considered a hyper sport touring machine because you can get expandable, lockable, removable luggage for this motorcycle. It's a bit heavier with a big 5-gallon gas tank, so it's meant for longer tours with a passenger in the pillion, and it does all of that while putting this huge smile on your face. 167 out the door horsepower, just incredible power of this machine. At its time, it was one of the most powerful, I believe, if not the most powerful production motorcycles, rivaling even that of the Hayabusa by Suzuki. So this is an inline 4-cylinder engine pushing about 167 horsepower stock. I have the Z Technique full exhaust, so that adds another 7-8 horsepower and shaves about 16 pounds off from the original muffler, which is large. But I don't find it terribly unattractive, to be honest, although it does hide this gorgeous single-sided swing arm wheel that you can just take in. It's like a piece of art. This thing belongs, you know, on a shelf in a museum somewhere. Just the effort and the lines that are visible on this incredibly beautiful wheel are really to be appreciated. This is one of those factors that just kind of caught me. You know from my previous reviews of the Triumph Sprint ST that I really love sport touring bikes with luggage and a single-sided swing arm. I've been the owner of numerous Honda VFR 800s. I love that motorcycle. This, however, is a little more comparable to the largest of the Honda VFR Interceptor, the 1200, than its smaller predecessors, just because they both share the shaft drive system. So there's no chains to maintain, no belts, no maintenance shaft drive. I love it. Yes, it's heavier, but I don't mind the weight for a sport touring bike. It cuts through the air better. It doesn't get pushed around by wind. You can pass bigger trucks. If you've ever ridden behind a truck or something on a highway, you know, all the buffeting air behind it really has a tendency to throw you around a little bit. Not on a bike like this that's super aerodynamic, all the weight's super low. This thing is just like an arrow. It just wants to be stable and just fly like a bullet through the air. The engineering that went into this bike, it's incredible. The K1200S was produced from about 2003 to 2009. That's at least when it was sold in, I believe, Europe and the United States. It was succeeded by the K1300, so another 150, 60 cc's more for a motorcycle that really proved itself valuable to the sport touring and the hypersport community. You notice the little mascot?
Little mascot.
Well, in the past tense. The mascot is no more. It is ceased to be. You know where that's from? Monty Python. Look at this thing. It's absolutely stunning. I remember seeing this for the first time in 2006. I recently graduated from high school, and a friend and I took his van from Michigan, and we took about 3 months road trip to California. And coming to San Diego, I remember it clearly like it was yesterday. in La Jolla, I see this gorgeous thing just cruising down the road, and it just blew me away. And one day I said, I'm gonna come to California, I'm gonna live in San Diego and surf every day, and I'm gonna ride the K1200S and live in a home and have a little beautiful baby. And all of that is, I'm humbled to say, coming to fruition. I feel blessed. I feel blessed to be able to exercise my passion for motorcycling, to live in a place that allows me to do that with these amazing roads and this awesomely wealthy market of used motorcycles, the ones that we used to drool over when we were kids and teenagers. So I get that here, and I'm very, very blessed to be able to share it with you, my awesome YouTube community. Thank you for your participation. I learn a lot from you, and I really appreciate when I read the comments, especially the critical ones that make me get better at what I'm doing. I do this purely out of passion. None of this is sponsored or supported by anybody other than myself and my amazing wife, who is sitting home with the baby right now that's 3 weeks old, who understands my need to ride these motorcycles on the weekends, and she supports me 100% of the way. So I hope that I'm able to share some of this positivity with you, because we live in a very difficult time, 2 weeks away from these really tumultuous and hopefully not violent elections. Last time I was here, I tried to film this review, and there was this cloud of sepia-colored smoke preventing me from doing that from all the fires that were happening in California. So there's a lot of other things that we could be talking about right now that are more important. But for me, motorcycling is an antidote. It's a panacea of sorts. It's something that really, you know, helps me be a better person to others, just in virtue of being calmer, being more appreciative, coming up here, letting the sun hit my face, and saying thank you for all these blessings that I've been able to enjoy. And I really, really thank you for being part of this awesome, growing community, for your participation and for educating me also with your comments and with your participation. So thank you once more. That said, back to the bike. The bike is just phenomenal. I mean, it says its top speed is 170. Honestly, without the governor, I think this thing can fly. It's just super stable. And in the corners, it's just as stable as it is going 70 miles an hour on the straightaways. All of that has to do precisely with the incredible job BMW did with this very novel system of front suspension. One of the most innovating things about this motorcycle is the front end suspension. BMW really wanted to leave a mark when they started to dip their toes into this hypersport touring class, and they did that partly by creating a totally new system for the front. Well, not exactly totally new. It was created in the 80s by a guy named Norman Hosak, and it's called a dual lever system. The dual lever system eliminates the need for telescopic forks. You know, telescopic forks can bend, and they also absorb a lot of the forces that are acted on it when the bike is in heavy cornering, under heavy braking, or under heavy acceleration. Those telescopic forks are absorbing all that force. So what happens when you brake within a corner, you basically make the motorcycle dip down quite a lot. And when the motorcycle dips down, this front angle of the forks, of the steering itself, will change. It'll become more vertical, more aggressive. What that does is it brings the front wheel more towards the rear, and that whole distance is decreased. When you decrease that distance, that makes the motorcycle more aggressive in cornering. But when that's done in the middle of a corner, it can be off-putting, it can be a surprise. That's not what you want when you're cornering a motorcycle aggressively. Same thing happens with acceleration. The angle decreases because the forks are pulled out. That also has an effect of how the motorcycle handles. With the dual lever system, that whole process is supposed to be not fully eliminated, but almost completely alleviated, let's say. So steering is more predictable, more precise. The bike doesn't dip as much, and there is no noticeable changes in the angle of the steering when hard braking in front of a corner or hard acceleration. So the steering is completely isolated from braking and acceleration. I love it, to be honest. People either love it or hate it. Some say they never go back to forks after they've had this system. I gotta say, I love it. What I found about this bike is that it loves to be sideways. It just loves it. It's so easy on this bike. It takes a while if you're going slow. For example, it feels a little bit heavy, a little bit dull even. But once you get up to speed where this bike likes to be, man, cornering is just beautiful. You almost get zoned out. It just wants to be on the side. It's almost like you're riding on perfectly clean stretch of asphalt that has no bumps, no curves, nothing. You lean the bike in and it just cuts through it like an ice skate on perfect ice. That's what it feels like. There's no surprises. The bike isn't doing any kind of weird dipping in the middle of the corner. This also helps, let's say you hit a pothole, especially if you hit a pothole in a corner or you hit a small animal or something to that effect. The system is a lot more stable. It's a lot more sturdy. There are no telescopic forks that can flex. There's no need, therefore, for any kind of fork stabilizers. So I like it. I think this is a great system, and respect to BMW for trying something new. And I love seeing the dual liver just kind of work underneath me, yet feel completely stationary. I love it. It's really great. I mentioned it has a 5-gallon tank, so this is a sport touring machine. It's meant to go the distance. I measured about 40 or so miles per gallon in a very spirited manner of riding this thing today around the desert. We did about 250 miles, and my companion was on a 2018 Kawasaki H2, just like an incredibly fast motorcycle, 200 horsepower, supercharged engine, just an awesome bike. What I noticed between those two motorcycles since we switched and we tried both, and what he concurs, is that the power delivery on the BMW is a little bit delayed. This is something I've noticed right away, especially lower in the RPM. It actually takes a split second, a noticeable delay in the power delivery, lower RPMs, as opposed to the brand new Kawasaki H2, of course. The thing is just crisp like no other. I mean, it's also 200 horsepower, it's supercharged engine, you can't mess with that. That bike can simply pull away much quicker than this bike can, but definitely satisfactory on the BMW side. No issues there. The power is incredible, incredible. I also really love the brakes on this bike. You have a dual cylinder in the front, dual caliper as well, single in the back with 2 piston calipers, and they are linked. This was an option with the ABS. So not only does it have ABS, but the front and the rear are linked. So if you compress the front lever, it will activate the rear as well, to an extent, not fully. That does not happen in reverse. If you activate the rear, you're only controlling the rear. Because the brakes are linked, I found that the rear tends to lock up a little too quickly for my taste. So if you stomp on the front, you're likely to lock up the rear just because they're linked, even if you didn't touch the rear. So that's kind of interesting. And then, of course, the ABS kicks in. Like I say, a little bit too early, but better early than late, right? So can't complain there. This also has the electronic suspension control system. This was another option that you could purchase at the time, and it's great, to be honest. You push of a button gives you 3 different modes: the sport, the comfort, and the normal. There is a noticeable difference, and you can do this on the fly when you're cruising, and I love it. I think that's really easy, rather than have some kind of manual lever that you have to manipulate 20 clicks. I don't know, unless you're racing, you're not going to be that particular with your suspension, I argue, but maybe you're different, so keep that in mind. The seat is very comfortable. Actually, the seat comes with straps underneath it. They're stowed away and you can actually pull them out, and you can strap stuff to this bike. So that also tells you the sport touring mindset that the engineers were in when they were creating this motorcycle. I like those little details. It's kind of neat. So yeah, a lot of people don't even notice them, but yeah, if you take off the seat, underneath it there are going to be 2 straps. They're pulled away, just stretch them out, and you can use them to strap stuff down. So the wind protection on this bike is great, to be honest. I did have to upgrade my windscreen to a Z-Technique higher windscreen so that the wind actually hits me in the top part of my helmet instead of the lower part. I don't mind that, to be honest. Actually, I kind of like it because I think that whole daily training of my neck is partially responsible for my being able to take a punch during my collegiate boxing career, and I took quite a few of them. So yeah, I don't mind that at all with the 5-pound helmet, the GoPro, the Senna. Daily training, I don't mind that at all. It doesn't hit me in the chest, which is the main thing. I don't like when the air hits you in the chest. Also, you get sweaty in the suit, and then that air is hitting you in the wet chest. It's not very healthy. So this bike doesn't have that problem. We have a very wide fairing here on the side, so it's directed away from you, and I really like this. I like this little spoiler here system. It's more aesthetic than anything, but it's just a nice little detail, although it's a little loose. It cuts through the wind like no other. I mean, it's just meant to be ridden fast, as much going straight as in the corners. Their MSRP was about $16,000. You can pick them up now for anywhere between 5 and 7, depending on the condition, depending on what the market is doing. Now the market is quite favorable. If this is a bike that you think you would enjoy, this is a bike you're going to enjoy. I guarantee you that. But if you think that it's worth experimenting, it's worth trying, pick one up. They make them in incredibly beautiful colors as well. There's this beautiful blue. I almost pulled the trigger on that one, but I was just kind of keen on getting this yellow and black. I think the coloring scheme is just awesome. Now they do come with a luggage system. This is a luggage system that's shared between it and a few other BMWs, namely the K1200R, the naked version, the urban street fighter version of this motorcycle. They share these gray bags. They're kind of universal, so to speak. I like the fact that bags can be universal. Triumph does the same thing. They have a bag system that they share between the Sprint ST and the Triumph Tiger, the street version of the Tiger. It's kind of cool that you can share bags amongst your motorcycles, or it makes it easier to find replacements. I think Aprilia does the same thing between its Futura and its Capo Nord, so it's cool. The only thing is that these bags I actually don't like. The bags that come with this motorcycle I don't like, because somebody's having a great time today on Palomar Mountains. Out of all the OEM luggage sets that I've owned for my motorcycles, I find these particular ones to be honestly most stressful, least desirable, and least attractive in that regard. They're not color matched, for one. They do expand, but the system itself is kind of shoddy, and it tends to seize after a while, especially if the bike's been sitting in a dusty area. I'm just not a fan. When they're not expanded, they are quite small. They don't really accommodate a lot of equipment at all. They definitely add value to the motorcycle. If you can find it with luggage, by all means grab it, because the luggage, yes, it is shared, so it's easier to find than if it was only made for this bike. And of course, it's always going to be useful. You're always going to have a need to put something in the bike, so maybe like tire repair kit or first aid kit, tourniquet, just a basic toolkit, water, those kinds of things. It's nice to have the luggage. If you are also to lay it down, the luggage is the first thing that's going to hit, so it saves these expensive plastics. So by all means, do get the luggage, but don't have high hopes for it. That's all I'm going to say. What I don't like about the bike is the gearing. The gearing, well, the gearing is fine, but the gear shifting themselves is just a nightmare. It feels like I'm riding one of those old BMW R80s from the 80s, or like a tractor. That's what it feels. I really don't like that. I want a more refined shifting mechanism where it doesn't sound like I'm just punching one piece of metal against the other. I've ridden a few of these motorcycles, and I know that's what they're like. I've owned 3 or 4 other BMWs, and shifting has always been the main negative for me. And to be honest, if I walked into a dealership back in 2006 with 20 grand in my pocket and I had the option to buy any bike in that class, I don't know. I think the shifting might have been a deal breaker for me. It's really that abrupt. It's that loud. It's that clunky. Now, you don't want a clunky gearbox when you have this awesome motorcycle. Really, I can't get used to it. I really don't like it. And it doesn't help that the clutch lever is so far to take a bite. I mean, it just takes a long time for it to grip. You can't really adjust it too much. There's a little bit of adjusting. Obviously, it's a hydraulic clutch, but I still have a hard time getting used to it. My friend who accompanied me today with his Kawasaki H2, he also noticed that the bike lags in the acceleration by a split second at times, and that the shifting is just way too clunky for what the bike needs to be doing. So I don't know, it's not a deal breaker for a used motorcycle. You don't pay as much as well, you know, as the MSRP when it was new. But if I was buying this new and I felt the same kind of abrupt and clunky shifting mechanism, I really have to think twice. So just keep that in mind when you test ride it. Nothing's wrong with it, that's how it is. What I hate is, so I'm going to use the word hate because I really hate it, it's BMW's attempt to do things differently, to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, by doing these really stupid blinkers. So I have a blinker on the left and a blinker on the right and a blinker cancel on the right. So I'm in a heavy corner with both my fingers on the brake and my hand around the throttle, controlling the two most important things on the bike in a very sensitive fashion for a bike like this. And I'm supposed to be canceling my blinker because it doesn't cancel. It takes like 12 seconds or something. I believe it takes 8 seconds and 200 meters to self-cancel. Or because I have to actuate the right blinker. How annoying is that, you know? Harley Davidson does the same thing. I have an Electroglide, and it's just, you know, you're twisting a throttle. You don't want to be actuating the right blinker. The system used in majority of motorcycles out there today, especially all Japanese bike, is fine. It works great. You have the switch on your left side. You control it by your left thumb. You cancel it by pushing it in. Great, that's perfect. And in fact, BMW realized this, so in the 1300, they did just that. The mirrors are great. They're easy to adjust manually. They have a blinker on the side, so easy for others to see you, and they don't vibrate at all. There's not a lot of vibration on this bike, as expected. 6-speed motorcycle. The speedometer actually does show you the speed you're in as well. There's a whole bunch of computerized and analog and digital information that you're being bombarded with. I even got a warning light when my seat didn't click in place. I figured BMW would do something like that, so I don't quite need that level of information, but okay, it's appreciated. I won't complain. I do like the looks of the analog speedometer and tach, but when you have a bike that can reach 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, then you need maybe a digital speedo just to let you know where you're at. This bike does also have the BMW Motorrad Navigator 3 system. GPS systems from back in the day. It's kind of superfluous now, but it is useful. I mean, I use it, but it's not something that's too much of a value added to the motorcycle. So if the one that you are looking at doesn't have it, don't worry, you're not missing out. What it does do actually is it does assist in having a GPS system in virtue of the handlebars not having any space or not allowing any opportunity for you to attach a RAM mount or a phone mount. I don't see another way you can attach a phone to this motorcycle unless BMW has one of their fancy expensive accessories. So this GPS is useful in that regard. Sometimes it has a hard time finding satellites, but you can actually see it. You can manipulate the screen with your gloves, so that's kind of nice. It's not hard to see per se, although it does sit kind of low. I would even say dangerously low, where you have to take your eyes off of the road in front just to look at the navigation system. They also give you a 12-volt outlet. It's a BMW style 12 volts, so it's for their own specific accessories. Again, a little bit annoying, but I understand why they do it. There's not excessive heat or vibration with this motorcycle. Well, one, you're constantly really flying, so the heat is not an issue, but today we dipped down into the Anza Borrego Desert. It was 109, I believe. No problem, honestly, even in this leather suit. It's perforated, but it is a leather suit, and I'm wearing the underwear that goes underneath, and it gets toasty, but not an issue, to be honest. This bike really is just a joy to ride.
109 degrees.
109?
Yeah.
Nice. It's good for the tires. There you go. The stance is really comfortable. It's not overly aggressive, but it does hide you from the draft that you're cutting through. So I think the stance of the motorcycle is very, very relaxed, I would say. You can really get down low in the corners. You can drag your knees all day long. I do have a tank bag on top, so that prevents me from getting too low. I took it off for this trip because I knew I was going to really enjoy the bike. With that off, I'm able to really dip super low and take the corners at a really, really fast pace, and I enjoy it. And like I said, because of this dual lever front suspension system, it just feels super solid. You know, it feels like it wants to do that all day long. You almost wish there was a road that you could just go in a circle in a corner because it just wants to stay sideways. I haven't owned it long enough to have to do any kind of maintenance on it at the moment, not quite yet, other than oil, simple stuff like that. But I did notice that the maintenance intervals are fairly short, around 6,000 miles. So you need one at 6, you need one at 12, you need one at 18. The receipts are like 1,100 bucks, 1,200 bucks, at least at the 1,800 one. So it's quite pricey, to be honest. You know, BMWs are not cheap to maintain. And there's a lot of stuff that you can't do by yourself. Another thing that really kind of annoys me for my other BMWs, and I've talked about this in my other reviews, is these star bolts that are easy to strip and that are just kind of annoying to have around. I mean, they look decent, but they're not necessary. I would much rather have an Allen bolt or a hexagonal bolt, something to that effect. But okay, you know that when you're buying a BMW. It does have a few recalls as well, so be sure to check this site out, which lists all the recalls that this bike has, and make sure you get that taken care of. It does have heated grips, so that's kind of nice. Even in San Diego in the winter, it gets cold enough where you could definitely benefit from heated grips. And it does have, of course, emergency flashers. I believe the bike also had an optional BMW alarm system with a little chip that you just simply approximate to the dash and it disarms, so that's kind of neat. Keep that in mind as well. Those are just some of the options that you can encounter when buying this bike used. I actually made another video that is full of a wealth of information about how to choose a motorcycle, how to go about negotiating for a better price, how to evaluate its condition, etc. So please be sure to take a look at that video. It's basically a used motorcycles buyer's guide. If you're in the market, it's definitely something that you should consider, because the more information you have, the better you're going to come out after that deal. You don't see them very often. They're not very common. It makes them kind of special to me. I love when people talk to me about it, because I can tell them everything I just told you and they get a little more than what they asked for, but it's just a cool bike. One of those motorcycles that you could pass down to your boy or to your girl. You definitely could. Look at it. It doesn't go out of style. Something that's really well done like this will never go out of style. You know, we can be 50 years from now and we'll be looking back at motorcycles. Who knows what they're going to be? Obviously all electric, but this motorcycle here deserves to be in a museum almost. It's just too pretty. So thank you for watching. There it is. I hope this review was informative and entertaining, and I hope that you enjoyed looking at the bike. I have it in my living room next to my stroller. I love looking at it. It's kind of like it's a daily reminder of the very new contrasts of wheels in motion between motorcycle and a baby stroller. I do this with great pleasure. I do this purely out of my love for motorcycling, and it's a joy and an honor to have you as part of this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Ride safe until next time. Nick, I'm out.